Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about why we wear belts. This is something that comes up a lot. You'll see people who think that we wear lifting belts for the purpose of protecting our lower back. And the truth is, it really doesn't. People who hurt their lower backs oftentimes do it with a belt, and plenty of people who lift ridiculous weights, don't wear a belt and never have hurt their back. So realistically, back injuries tend to be a result of either having a weak core in some way, or bad form, or overuse. Right? Some combination of the three most of the time. To be fair, oftentimes bad form doesn't even cause low back injuries. Yeah, of course, I'm not a big fan of touch and go deadlifts, of course, because I think most deadlift back injuries I've seen are caused by those. But that's really another topic completely, isn't it? So, if we don't wear belts for that purpose, why do we wear them? Well, we wear a belt to give our abdominal wall something to brace against, right? Because if we can brace our abs and press them hard against something, it helps us brace tighter. It helps us raise intra-abdominal pressure. And a lot of people would say, well, what's the point of that? Well, there's a number of different points to that. Number one, by doing that, it can actually help you recruit the abdominals a little more. Arguably, it makes them work harder. A lot of times there was a belief for years that training beltless, and I used to be in this camp, by the way. I used to be in this camp on YouTube many years ago. I've been doing YouTube for, 10 plus years now. I used to talk about that and, say, oh, it's more manly to train without a belt and all that nonsense. I used to say that. But, there's a point where we have to look at the evidence and we have to grow up and mature a little bit instead of saying, well, that's just more manly. We don't need a belt. Look at the evidence. And the evidence tends to suggest higher activation of the abdominal wall, right? Your abs seem to actually have a little more activity in the studies that looked at it when a belt is worn. And I'm not saying those studies are definitive by any means, but it makes sense. And I've seen, again, a number of very smart people make good arguments for it based upon other data. Very intelligent, very educated, very strong people have made that point that it would actually behoove us to train with a belt more often if our goal is to strengthen our abdominal wall. Because again, it's able to contract harder. So we could make the case that there may be more potential for stronger abs from doing it. Now, can we say that for certain? No. The potential is there. All right. Number two, the ability to maintain a more upright torso. Because if we can brace harder, we can get everything tighter. And if we can get everything tighter and hold ourselves into better positions, we can handle heavier weights. Now, people will say, well, what if I don't care about strength? Well, you should care about strength. But even then, if we're going to talk about hypertrophy, if you're able to get more loading in, say, your legs, whether you're squatting, deadlifting, doing good mornings, whatever. All right, if you're able to get more loading into your legs because you're able to maintain a tighter structure and control the weight better up top, that's going to give you the potential for a little more development because you can overload everything a little more. You're not as likely to lose your positioning as a result of that improved tightness. Hey, that's a big factor. It will affect bar paths. And I'm not saying that's absolute. I mean, there have been people who hit world-class level deadlifts without a belt. They are out there. But it's potential. That's the main thing we're looking at. We're looking at the potential. All right, what's the other big one? Neuromuscular efficiency. Right? And this is what I want people to think about. The tighter you can squeeze and ratchet yourself up, we know this, the better you can recruit muscle fibers throughout the whole body. Right? For example, most people have realized, hey, I'm stronger on presses and pulls and whatever if I squeeze the bar really, really hard, right? Because by doing that and squeezing the bar really hard, say when you bench press, overhead press, row, whatever, it improves your neuromuscular efficiency. You get an irradiation effect. Okay, and that means that you can produce more force. Well, how do we produce more force? Well, because it means we recruited more muscle fibers, in theory, right? In theory. So if our goal is to recruit more muscle fibers, whether for the purpose of lifting more weight to produce more force, or potentially to stimulate more muscle growth on a set, right? Because we want to activate and fatigue muscle fibers, right? That's what we're trying to do. And wearing a belt might be helpful there. Again, we come over to with points like that of, is that an absolute? Can we say that that is absolutely a fact? No. Can we say there's a decent possibility of it? And the answer there is yes. And that's what we have to look at with a lot of those things when we're asking that question, whether to wear a belt or not. In that case, is there maybe the potential for more hypertrophy? Yes. Is it, if we look at the data that we have available, would it suggest that there might be a reasonable chance? It's a reasonable possibility. Yeah. Well, getting a belt's not that hard to do, not that expensive. We're going to tend to wear them anyways for a lot of lifts. Makes sense to use a belt. Makes sense to use a belt on a lot of movements because of that. Because it allows us to get tighter. It might, and again, I do want to stress might because I don't want to say that this is absolutely a fact. It might cause us to be able to recruit more muscle fibers easier, stimulate more hypertrophy, get more quality reps in that case out of a set. It can help us stay more upright and brace better, right? Keep us into a better, tighter position, which will again allow us to move more weight. And back over to that other context of, well, if we're doing it that way, we're moving more weight more effectively, and we're not having our torso and things collapse because we're able to brace better. That might lead to more gains. And then, of course, we have the other issue that it tends to make you a little stronger. And if our goal is to lift a lot of weight, it makes sense to do that. But what we want to be very, very clear on, though, is that we don't really have evidence that wearing a belt will help protect your lower back, right? Good fatigue management, good practices, good programming will help you more than anything there. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.